smarter to travel in group.
We are continuing on with our series, Better Together. We're talking about how God has put the church together in terms of service. And so last week we talked about that we are better together, not just kind of accidentally, but necessarily. We need to be connected. God designed it so that this is the only way the church works. Today, we want to look at kind of not us as a group, but us individually and kind of the value there. Now, for myself, I'm not much of a reader. I feel that if God intended us to read books, he wouldn't have created movies. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the Divergent series. They have this kind of really interesting take on society. It's kind of a modern utopian society. But what was unique about this story is the young people, as they are raised in their home, come to a point where they have to pick one of the factions. The factions are the way society has divided people up into types of people. And so the young folks are forced to kind of decide which faction they're going to belong to. Now, this is more than just kind of like, what am I going to do? When you pick a faction, that is a choice for life. If your family is part of another faction, you have to say goodbye to them. It is complete separation. And so it's a pretty big deal in terms of coming up to the point of that decision, making it, and trying to fit in with one of these. So it's kind of interesting how they divide it up. They have abnegation. That's the selfless people. That would be like people that really help others. You have amity, the peaceful people that are kind-hearted and kind of make things work. You've got candor, the honest folks, erudite, the intelligent, and dauntless, the brave. And so you kind of have to look inside yourself and say, where do I fit? Because we're all different. We're all different. And that's what it's pointing out. And we kind of go, there's a little bit of a sense to that. But it does create a bit of tension in the movie, if you ever watch it, of going, man, I've got to make this decision, and it's a decision where I am forced into a category for the rest of my life. But this idea that we're different is not new. In fact, Paul talks about this as he talks about how the church functions. So in 1 Corinthians 12, he says, look, there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. So Paul, look at this. 3 times right in a row, go ahead. He's emphasizing, look, there's not just different acts of service, different roles, but really he's going, look, we're different people, and we get that. I mean, that's what makes a little bit of sense in the whole Divergent series, is going, yeah, we can kind of see that, how people divide up into groups there. We're not so sure about kind of, it's a lifelong decision, but, it has a sense to it. And Paul's picking up on that, going, look, we are different, and God has intended that difference to be a good thing. In fact, that is what is going to fuel how the church works, how we serve and work together to accomplish the mission. So you might go, well, if this was a moment like in Divergent where you had to come up and choose, how would you choose? How would you kind of pick, man, this is the way that I would serve. This is where I would serve. We are going to use a method created by Rick Warren. This is a great method. In fact, it has pretty much taken over all of Christianity. My source sheet for this material is actually from a Catholic source. So if the Protestants and the Catholics agree on this thing, it's got to be good. We're going to be voting in Rick as a pope here pretty soon. So good. I didn't get many laughs this morning here. They were still going. Yeah, they were still tired. So we're going to work through this. This isn't brand new. Some of you have heard it before. It's not rocket science, but it is a way of going, how do I think through where I fit. How do I find my place of serving in the church? If I must necessarily fit, if it takes all of us working together, where do I belong? And so these 5 categories are going to help us sort that out. So you can follow along with your insert here if you want to. So the first category is spiritual gifts. And this is probably the hardest one of them all. There you go. He woke up. Spiritual gifts. It is a unique category. It's a supernatural category. It is only talked about in the New Testament. So these aren't gifts like we would normally talk about somebody being gifted. Like Michael Jordan is gifted. Man, he can sink those shots, he can jump, he can dunk, but that's abilities. We're going to get to that. This is a different type of gifting. This is a special spiritual type of gifting that Paul says Jesus set up. When he started the church, he went, look, I'm going to be saving these people. I'm going to be bringing them together. We're going to use abilities, but they need something a little bit more. Something that is kind of hyper-infused with my divine power. And so we have different lists in the New Testament. They're in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 11. There's one other place there that lists a few of them. And the church has studied these over the years of going, oh, okay, we recognize that God has given people some special abilities to help the church function. Now, these are abilities in the sense of they have to be God-driven. Nobody can kind of just pick one of these up or say, I'm going to have this. This has to be chosen by God. God gives you this gift. God gives you this ability. So the difference is Michael Jordan can sink a three-pointer, whether he believes in God or not, right? That's a skill. That's an ability. You cannot use a spiritual gift if you are not in tune with God, if you don't have faith or you're out of connection with God. It is necessarily something that flows out of the faith that you have, the connection you have with God. God says, I'm going to use you. I'm going to give you these abilities, and I'm working directly through you at these times. So we don't have time to kind of go into all of these. Go ahead. But part of understanding how you serve in the church is to figure out the spiritual gifting and how God is using you. Now, there's different ways of looking at it. Some folks go, this is a very static thing. God gives you a spiritual gift and you kind of have it the rest of your life for the most part. Other people go, wait a minute, that may well be true, but it's more fluid, and God gives people gifts even for particular instances or moments of going, hey, this is an important thing, and you just kind of feel like if you've ever experienced this of going, wow, that was not me, that's not my abilities, that's not even my personality, but first God just kind of overrode and went, man, I got used in that moment in a powerful way. And so that has to be with an extension of your faith and your walk with God. So we've got to figure that out. That's a big piece of this. We need to do more teaching on it. Too much for one morning. So that's category number one. The second category is your heart. What you care about. What is your passion? What drives you? What goes, man, this is what I really care about. This is the group of people that, man, I got a soft spot in my heart. What are the things that make your heart kind of beat a little bit faster? That's a cue. That's a cue. There you go. That makes my heart beat a little faster when he turns it to the right thing. So, I think of Pastor Mary, actually, with this category. She has a lot of abilities and skills. She could do a ton of different things, but you know what? If you know her for any amount of time, what would clearly come out is she has a heart for people trapped in slavery or some type of bondage. So she worked with women coming out of prisons down in Florida. When she came up here, she was very excited about the Set Free movement through the Free Methodist Church, and she was getting involved with that. And then I just received an email from her here the other day. She's getting involved in another organization that is helping women coming out of slavery or some type of bondage. She can do a lot of things, but consistently over her life, she goes, I care about that. That gets her engine going. She's motivated for it. She's all in. It doesn't matter whether she lives in Florida, Pennsylvania, or New York State. It keeps bubbling to the top for her, right? That's heart. What keeps bubbling to the top for you? What do you care about? What gets your engine going? Now, you might go, well, nothing. I just kind of wake up. It's the same pile. I shovel a little while, and then I go home, I eat, and I go to bed, and that's it. That's not what God made you for. There's something wrong with that picture. If there is nothing that grips your heart, something that you care about, more than just entertainment or having a good time, something that you go, I'll give myself to that. You aren't in tune with who God has made you to be. You need to discover that. Who do you care about? As we sort out these ministries, do you have a soft spot for youth, for kids, for women, for men, for all these different things, and even ministries that we don't have developed yet that we're going to develop. This is going to be driven in part by the passions that arise out of this church. What do you care about? So that's the second category. The third category is abilities. Now, these are what we would imagine them to be. Go ahead. These are your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, the things that you can do.
Well, anyway, so we're talking about Michael Jordan here.
We're talking about like Michael Jordan here, right? You can
These are things that we can do
here, right?
These are things that we also from God.
This is
we
also
don't develop
from God.
these. You don't wake up one day and go, well,
you don't wake up one day and go, well,
this.
what, I'm
now
going to be
we can.
This. Now
we don't choose them. We can develop them.
We don't choose them. We can
to make
develop
our abilities better and stronger. God gives
stronger.
these to us so that we can provide for ourselves and for our families. And that's right. That's good. You should line up your career with the things that you do well. But He gives them to us also to be a blessing to others. To be able to recognize that, I have this particular skill, and I can help and serve in ways that other people can't. So I think of a guy named Jeff in a church I attended over in Meadville. Didn't go to college. I think he made it out of high school. Not a book person. Not a test taker. But this guy was off the charts with mechanical intelligence. Like, if it could be taken apart and put back together, don't even bother with instructions. He can see it in ways that I'm just like, that's a big pile of parts. And he's like, no, I know how that works.
I know how that
and
that
so,
works.
Obviously he was a mechanic. He worked on cars. He provided for himself and his family. But his faith took that a step further and went, I have this ability to also be a blessing to other people. And he lived that out. He used that skill in those ways. I received some of that when I went to move from Pennsylvania to California. I took the shortcut through New York City and Florida, and my car wasn't doing so well, so I was kind of coming up, and I had to stop at one of those garages by the highways, and found out that I needed this, and I needed that, and I needed this, and basically he said, look, your battery needs a new car. I said, okay, that's great. So I didn't have that money then. I didn't have that money then. I found Jeff, and I'm like, Jeff, you gotta help me out. I'm trying to make it to California. I'm trying to make it to California. He looked at that thing and went, no. He looked at that thing and went, no. You just need this and this. He got that car working. You just need this and this. And it made it all the way to California. I believe based on Jeff's faith. That's it. It died about 2 months after that. But he used his ability. So you go, what just kind of raw natural skills do I have? And how can I use that inside the church or for ministry in ways that other people
in ways that other people
don't ask me to fix your car.
Don't ask me to fix your car.
If you want to know how to flip a 12-foot sheet of drywall, I'm your guy. Come see me. We'll talk.
Come see me.
You got to start with hamburgers.
You got to start with hamburgers.
Lots of them.
Lots of them.
All right. Fourth area is personality.
Fourth area is personality.
Who are you? Well, kind of what type of person are you? So there's lots of different descriptors for personalities, but let's kind of go with this simple four-stage thing here. So we talk about people being a lion, a golden retriever, and a so a lion person is kind of a dominant, loud person, pushy, wants to always get things done, always get things done, they're kind of rough on people. Whereas the beaver, they are the detailed people. They are the ones that go, I'm going to make sure I get this right.
I'm going to make sure I get this right.
They're going to be slow and patient and consistent, sometimes grouchy at you if you're trying to move it along when they're going, wait, we're still a penny off. I got to find that penny.
I gotta find that penny.
They are the detailed folks. Then you have
the detailed folks. Then you have
golden retrievers. Those are the people that like people.
Those are the
lions eat people. Golden retrievers like people. They're good listeners. They're good listeners. They're very empathetic and very in tune with folks.
And very in tune with folks.
Just well loved around. Then you got the otters. The otters really don't care. As long as we're having fun, they're in on it.
As long as we're having fun, they're in on it.
They are the energetic, lively people.
They are the energetic, lively
people. Love to make a game and fun out of everything.
A game and fun out of everything.
And so you kind of have these four basic patterns. We all have these different characteristics, but there seems to be one dominant, maybe a pair of them in you. And you go, well, who are you? How do you process reality? How do you react to people? How do you react to circumstances?
How do you react to
That's really what we're talking about when we say that is a portion of what makes you up, and how you're going to serve is going to be reflected in your
personality.
Because the truth of it is that we really need all four of these. There isn't a right one except for the lion.
There isn't a right one except for the lion.
That's not true at all. Not true at all.
Not true at all.
We need all of these.
We need all of these.
In every ministry, in every type of way. And what God is, as we're kind of sorting through this, what we're expressing is that while God will stretch you, He'll call you into areas that might go beyond your abilities. It might not be quite your comfort zone. God's not going to ask you to be what you're not.
God's not going to ask you to be what you're not.
He created you. He designed you.
He designed you.
He's got a spot. He has a place.
He's got a spot. He has
opportunities that are in line with who you are.
He's
not going to ask a golden retriever to be a golden
retriever.
Did you know what you get? You get this.
Did you know what you get?
That's
you get this.
And
that's not good.
Yeah. You don't want that.
Yeah. You don't want that. You don't want that.
God's calling you to be who you are.
God's calling you.
I had a revelation here.
I had a revelation
a year ago now. I was part of a small group, and we did. It wasn't a personality test, but it's an extension. How do you process time?
How do you process time?
They either ask you two questions.
They ask you two questions. They're going.
What is time objective or subjective?
Is time objective or subjective?
So you answer the question. What is 3 o'clock?
You answer the question. What is 3 o'clock?
Is 3 o'clock 3 o'clock?
Is 3 o'clock 3 o'clock?
Or is 3 o'clock 3-ish?
Or is 3 o'clock 3-ish?
I said 3 o'clock is sometime this afternoon, but probably tomorrow. I'm like way off the chart. And then they went, are you present focused or future focused?
Present focused or future focused?
And that was a group in March, and I was like, May doesn't even exist for me. That's just a concept out there. I'm pretty much right here. So what we discovered is, don't put me in charge of schedule. Not gonna happen. If it's not right here, it doesn't really exist. If it's not right here,
it doesn't really exist.
Expression of my personality.
That's why we need
a whole lot of other folks.
A whole lot of
balance each other. We complement each other.
We complement each other. We need the whole mix.
You need to understand who you are and what works with the way God has made you. The final category that we have to consider
is experiences.
if you've lived for any amount of time, you probably have had some.
You probably have had some.
Thanks. Yeah, I got a little bit of a chuckle there.
I got a little bit of a chuckle there. Yeah.
Comedian. That's what.
Comedian.
Experiences. So if you had a good upbringing,
you've had some
good experiences, you've had some victories in your life, we think of that and go,
we think of that and go,
there you go.
There
all right, yeah, I can use my good experiences.
All right, yeah, I can use my good experiences to help other people.
I've been mentored. I've been fed into. People have invested in me, and so I can pass that along. I can pass along the good experiences that I've had, the things that I'm on top of.
The things that I'm on top of.
May struggle in that area. So I think of like Sherry Beals there.
So I think of like Sherry Beals there.
A whiz with finances. Not everybody is. Sometimes that's a real struggle for a lot of folks.
Sometimes that's a real struggle.
She's not only number smart, but she is practically smart.
She's
lived a good financial life, and so that's something that can pour in her ministry. So when we offer the Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey, she's been tied to that oftentimes because that's a strength for her, and she can use that for ministry. That makes sense. Strength equals I have something to give. But this is where God does something. Is that it's not just about our victories. God also can use our broken experiences, our bad experiences.
That's a cue.
There we go. Our bad experiences. When maybe we didn't have a great upbringing. Maybe we didn't have people that did good in our life. They did bad things in our life. And you've had to face that and deal with the consequences of it and learn how to, with God's help, to come out on top. You've made mistakes, or other people have done stuff. We often go, oh, that's the things that I'm trying to forget about and put in my past and just move beyond. But God is a redeeming God. And He can take the broken pieces and fuel ministry. If you have let Him come into your life and fuel you and enable you to come along other people that could be in that same situation. That a person that had the victory can't even begin to understand. So you look at your experiences and you go, where have I had victories? But where have I had the defeats? Rick Warren says, God never wastes a hurt. He's not trying to eliminate those. He wants to redeem them. He wants to redeem them. You consider all five of these areas. In fact, here's how Rick puts it. Look, you're going to be most effective when you use your spiritual gifts and your natural abilities in the area of your heart's desire, and in a way that best expresses your personality in line with your experiences. The better the fit, the more successful you be. What we're doing is we are all unique because we've got all these different components of our lives, and we've got to figure out how God is mixing this. That's why we're all unique. That's why we all have something to bring. Nobody has all these things in the exact same way. We may have the same personality. We may have the same experiences, or we don't have the same experiences, or we may not have the same abilities. God may go, you can have all the same stuff, but I want to use a spiritual gift in your life in a very unique way. And let me work in your life. You have to consider all these. And so as we get ready for the new building, this is what we're doing. This is the hard work of sorting through this. I don't want you to process this in the way like the movie series Divergent does. See, the problem with Divergent is they go, you get to pick one thing. You get to pick one thing. We pigeonhole you for the rest of your life. And that's the only thing that you can really be or do. And that's not true. And so the series comes up with these people that are divergent. They recognize we aren't just one thing. We're multiple things. We have different abilities and skills and personalities that kind of put this all together.
put this all together.
And that's exactly what we're expressing.
And that's exactly what we're expressing in the
As we
shape
look
to
at
serve.
the whole picture,
As we look at the whole picture,
you begin to understand, wow, God can use me in a lot of different areas.
God can use me
You're not
in a
going to
lot of
answer
different
shape
areas.
and go, oh,
You're not
well,
going to
I've got to
answer
be
shape and go, oh, well, I've got to be in
ministry. Maybe it will
just in
direct you
youth
towards that.
ministry. Maybe it will
But
direct
honestly,
you towards that.
any personality
But honestly,
can work there.
any
You don't
personality
have to just be in modern.
You don't have to
Because
just be
you know
in
what?
water.
We need golden
Because you know
retrievers
what?
up there too.
We need
People that
golden
help
retrievers
lead
up
us
there
in
too.
here.
People
We
that
need
help lead us
people
in
that
here.
are aligned
We need
and
people
leading the way.
that are
We need
aligned
people that are
and
keeping
leading the
track
way.
of
We
things.
need people
like
that are
the-
keeping
the
track of
beavers.
things, like the
What we
beavers.
need is people with the
What
passion
we
to
need is
say,
people with the
I
passion
care.
to say,
I care to make the commitment.
I care to make the commitment.
It's not just about
It's
what
not
I
just
am,
about
but it's
what
about
I
how
am,
God's going to use me.
but it's
So
about
this
how
is really a
God's gonna
big
use
puzzle.
me. And so this is
Go
really a
ahead.
big puzzle.
A big puzzle, not just a puzzle
Big
to
puzzle, not just a puzzle
understand
to
who I am,
understand who I am,
but to understand how
but
I
to
fit
understand
into what
how
God
I
is doing
fit
in this church.
into what God is doing in this church.
See, if it was just about me, then I could
See, if it
answer
was
these
just about
questions
me,
apart
then
from
I could
how I
answer
might
these
serve
questions
or apart
apart
from
from
you.
how I might serve or apart
But
from
what
you.
Paul is going to describe here is
What
that
Paul
he's
is going to
going,
describe here
when
is
I
that
find
he's
where
going-
I serve
when I
and I
find
give
where
myself,
I serve and I give myself,
I find out who I am.
I find out who I am.
This is mutual.
This is
I
mutual.
give, but I also receive.
I
even
give, but
in
I also
serving.
receive even
I
in
find my
serving.
place. I find
My
where
place.
God is
I
using
find
me.
where God is using.
So let's go back to the passage that he
So let's go back to the passage that he
noticed that he emphasized the differences,
Notice that he
right?
emphasized the
But
differences,
you also
right?
notice that he
But you also
counterbalanced
notice
that
that
with
he
saying,
counterbalanced
look,
that with saying,
you all are different,
look,
but it's the same
you all are
Spirit.
different, but it's the same
It's the
Spirit.
same Lord guiding
It's
this
the
thing.
same Lord
It's the same
guiding
God
this
at
thing.
work
It's
in
the same
all of
God
you.
at work
These aren't
in all
differences
of
to
you.
divide us.
These aren't differences that
He's
divide
going,
us.
I'm bringing all you unique
He's going,
people.
I'm bringing all you
all the
unique
different
people,
ways that I've shaped
all the
you
different ways that I've
to
shaped
work
you
together.
to work together.
So that's why the next verse says this.
So that's why the next verse says this.
So to each person
So to
is
each
given a
person
demonstration of the
is
Spirit.
given a
gift
demonstration of the Spirit. A
is
gift
given for the
is
common.
given for the common.
I'm not just trying to figure out me. I'm
I'm
finding
not just trying to figure out me. I'm
where I fit.
finding
And where I find I fit,
and when
answers a big
find I
question
fit,
for me
answers a big
As
question
well.
for me
of who I am.
as well. Of who
Consider the opening
I am.
video.
Consider the opening video.
What if I said, well, that was a nice video.
What if I said, well, that was a
a
nice
dad
video.
helped out a son.
A
That's
dad
all that really
helped out a
happened,
son.
right?
That's all.
A
it
dad
really
helped out
happened.
a son.
A dad
Would
helped
that be
out
an
a son.
adequate description of that video?
Would that be an adequate description of that
No, I
video?
wouldn't justify all the miles.
No, I wouldn't
Maybe
justify
one
all the
race,
miles.
maybe two.
Maybe
'cause I'm
one
just here to
race,
help.
maybe two. Because I'm just here to help.
The dad
The
bought into
dad
this. Was he a
bought
runner
into
before he
this.
started it?
Was he a
didn't have
runner
that
before he
ability.
started it? He
He didn't have that passion for running.
He didn't have
What
that
did he have a
passion
passion
for running. What did he
For
have a
his
passion
son.
for? For his
And that
son.
led to a new
And
ability.
that led to a new ability.
The part that I love about that video is
The part
when
that I love
it
about that
describes
video
it
is
of
that when
going,
it
the
describes it
dad
of
was
going,
the legs,
the dad was the
and the
legs,
son was the heart.
and the son was the heart.
One couldn't have ever done this
One
alone.
couldn't have ever done this alone.
Both of them were being defined.
of them
Both of them were being
defined.
shaped by
Both of
this
them were
together.
being shaped by
The
this
dad knew
together.
who he was because
The dad knew who he
he
was
ran with his son.
because
The son knew who
he
he
ran
was
with his son. The
because
son knew who he
he did
was
this with his
because
father together.
he did this with his father
They did
together.
what neither one of them would have
They
ever
did
done
what
by
neither one of them
themselves.
would have ever done by themselves.
Exactly what the church is.
Exactly what the church is.
You come shaped how
You
God
come
has.
shaped how
And
God
you
has.
Offer
You
yourself in service. You find a
Offer
place.
yourself in service. You find
It's
a place.
necessary. It's the way
It's
God designed
necessary.
it.
It's the way God
And when you
designed it.
find that place,
And when you find
you
that
will find
place,
out who you are.
you will find out who you
It will
are.
define you. Because that's the way.
Because
God
that's the
designed
way God designed it.
Let's pray.
Let's pray.
Lord, we often like
Lord,
to just think of
we
ourselves
often
as
like to just think of
separate
ourselves as
individuals, but
separate individuals.
that's not true in
That's not true
any sense,
in
let alone in the
any
church
sense,
you
let
have
alone in
bound
the church
us
sense
together.
you have
You have brought every individual here.
You have brought every
No
individual
one's here by accident.
No one's here by
accident.
accident. You have gathered this church together
Individuals. Not
full
one
of
of us
unique
is
individuals.
sufficient.
Not one of us is sufficient.
It's
Not
gonna
two
take
of us
all
is
us.
sufficient. It's
For
going to
you
take all
to
of us.
accomplish
For
what you want
you
to
to
this church.
accomplish what you
So
want
Holy
to
Spirit,
this
I
church.
ask that you would
So Holy
be
Spirit,
at
I
work
ask that you
in our
would
minds
be
and our
at
hearts,
work
thinking through
in
these
our minds and our hearts,
categories,
thinking through these
asking the
categories,
question,
asking the question,
how has God shaped me to serve?
how has God shaped me
Where
to serve?
am
Where
I going to find that right fit?
am I going to find that right fit?
So that I not only
So
give,
that
but I receive.
I not only give, but I
That
receive.
I'm part of this community
That
of
I'm
faith.
part of this community of faith.
I'm part of the impact.
I'm part of the impact.
Lord, help us to have the courage
Lord, help us to have the
to grab
courage
hold of this.
to grab hold of